The legacy of ancient special forces. Picture this. 300 Persian sentries stand guard beneath a starless sky at Thermopylae, convinced they've trapped the Greek army in an impossible position. Not one of them notices the silent shadows moving through the mountain passes above, an elite force of hand-picked warriors who will change the course of history before dawn. This scene, played out more than 2 millennia ago, marks just one moment in the fascinating legacy of ancient special forces whose tactics and innovations still shape warfare today. From the Sacred Band of Thebes, who transformed warfare through unshakable unit cohesion, to the legendary Hashashin, whose psychological operations would make modern special forces proud, this is the story of 5 elite units that revolutionized combat. Their tales read like military thrillers, yet every word is anchored in historical fact. Night raids that toppled empires, covert operations that prevented wars, and training methods so effective they're still studied by special forces today. These weren't just soldiers. They were the Navy SEALs and Delta Force operators of the ancient world, and their influence echoes through every special operations mission launched in the modern era. The Sacred Band of Thebes, a revolution in warfare. The winter of 379 BCE brought more than just biting cold to the streets of Thebes. It brought revolution. While Spartan occupiers huddled around fires in their barracks, believing their grip on the city unshakable, a young officer named Pelopidas was about to prove them fatally wrong. With 12 companions, dressed as women returning from a festival, he infiltrated his own city. By dawn, the Spartan commanders lay dead in their beds, and Thebes had its freedom. But Pelopidas knew liberation was only the beginning. To keep that freedom, Thebes would need something unprecedented, a force so elite it could challenge Sparta's professional warriors on equal terms. Enter Gorgidas, a brilliant military theorist who proposed an idea so radical it seemed doomed to fail. Instead of separating his best warriors among different units to bolster weaker troops, standard practice at the time, he would concentrate them into a single, devastating force. But his most controversial decision wasn't about tactics or training. Each warrior would serve alongside his Erastes or Eromenos, his closest companion in life. 300 men, 150 pairs, bound by bonds stronger than steel. Plutarch would later write that no force could break a phalanx united by both love and honor. Their training regimen would have broken lesser men. While standard hoplites practiced formation fighting for a few hours each day, the Sacred Band drilled from dawn to dusk. They mastered the shield and spear tactics of traditional warfare, then went further, learning to fight in loose order, to move silently in darkness, to read terrain and exploit it. They lived together, trained together, and when battle came, they died together. Not a single member of the Sacred Band ever surrendered or fled while their companions still stood. Their moment of glory came at Leuctra in 371 BCE. Sparta's army stood undefeated for centuries, their very name striking terror into enemy hearts. The Sacred Band changed that in a single afternoon. While the main Theban army engaged the Spartan front, Pelopidas led his elite unit in a lightning strike against the Spartan right wing, where their best troops traditionally stood. The Sacred Band hit with such fury that the invincible Spartans broke for the first time in recorded history. By sunset, 1,000 Spartan warriors lay dead, including their king Cleombrotusmi. Sparta's reputation for invincibility, maintained for 3 centuries, shattered in hours. For 3 decades, the Sacred Band remained undefeated. They met their end only at Chaeronea in 338 BCE, facing a new kind of warfare brought by Philip II of Macedon and his son Alexander. Even then, they died as they had lived, together, defiant to the last. When excavators uncovered their mass grave in 1890, they found all 300 warriors still arranged in their original pairs, having kept their formation even in death. Philip II himself had ordered them buried with full military honors, moved to tears by such loyalty. Among the bones, archaeologists found silver lion pendants, the unit's symbol of courage, still gleaming after 2 millennia. The Sacred Band revolutionized warfare, not through superior weapons or tactics, but by proving that elite units, properly trained and motivated, could overcome overwhelming odds. Their legacy lives on in modern special forces, where unit cohesion and absolute trust remain as vital as any weapon. As the inscription on their monument at Cheronea reads, "Time has not dimmed their glory, nor will it ever. Rome's elite intelligence operatives, the Speculatores Augusti." A cloaked figure slipped through the shadows of Germania's endless forests in 9 CE, moving with the practiced stealth of a wolf. He wasn't a barbarian scout or a local hunter. He was a speculator, Rome's elite intelligence operative, and he carried information that could save an entire army. Behind him, Arminius, a trusted Germanic ally of Rome, was quietly positioning his forces for betrayal. But this speculator had noticed the subtle signs. The unusual movement of tribes, the stockpiling of weapons, the whispered conversations that stopped when Romans approached. Within days, his intelligence would reach General Varus, though whether the proud Roman would heed the warning was another matter entirely. The Speculatores began as the eyes and ears of the Republic, an elite reconnaissance unit that operated deep behind enemy lines. But under Augustus, they evolved into something far more sophisticated. These weren't mere scouts anymore. They were Rome's first hybrid special operations unit, combining the roles of intelligence gatherers, counterintelligence operators, and when necessary, precision strike teams. Selected from the finest legionaries, each speculator underwent a brutal training regimen that would feel familiar to modern special forces operators. Surveillance techniques, close combat, disguise, and the art of gathering intelligence under extreme pressure. Their missions read like ancient spy thrillers. In 19 CE, a team of Speculatores infiltrated a rebel stronghold in North Africa by posing as merchants, marking targets for the main Roman force that would strike at dawn. During the year of the 4 emperors, they ran complex counterintelligence operations, intercepting messages and eliminating rival assassination teams in the streets of Rome. One speculator even managed to infiltrate Queen Boudicca's inner circle during her rebellion, providing critical intelligence that helped suppress the British uprising. But perhaps their most remarkable innovation was their system of rapid intelligence transmission. The Speculatores established a network of safe houses and relay points throughout the empire, allowing them to move sensitive information from Britain to Egypt in a matter of weeks, an incredible feat in the ancient world. They developed sophisticated codes and encryption methods, including the use of invisible inks made from milk and plant extracts. Each speculator memorized these codes through a grueling process that required reciting complex messages backward while under physical stress. Their effectiveness made them both respected and feared. Emperors increasingly drew from their ranks to form the Speculatores Augusti, an elite within an elite who served as both imperial bodyguards and covert operatives. These men were the ancient equivalent of modern special operations forces, capable of switching from public ceremonial duties to clandestine operations without missing a beat. When Emperor Domitian needed to eliminate a potential usurper in Gaul, it was a speculator who completed the mission, making the death appear to be the result of a hunting accident. The unit's influence extended far beyond their operational success. Their methods of gathering and analyzing intelligence formed the backbone of Roman military decision-making for centuries. They developed the first known systematic approach to human intelligence gathering, creating detailed profiles of potential sources and standardized methods for evaluating information reliability, techniques still taught in modern intelligence schools. Their legendary ability to operate independently in hostile territory, surviving on minimal support while completing complex missions, set the standard for special operations forces that followed. The Speculatores proved that victory often depends not on the size of your army, but on the quality of your intelligence and the skill of your covert operators. As one Roman commander noted in his memoirs, "A single speculator, properly placed, is worth more than a cohort of legionaries." Modern special forces units, particularly those focused on intelligence gathering and covert operations, are their direct spiritual descendants, proving that in the shadow world of intelligence and special operations, some principles are truly timeless. The Immortals of Persia, elite warriors of the ancient world. Dawn broke over the Zagros Mountains in 480 BCE as 10,000 spears caught the rising sun. The Immortals were on the march, their black and white standards rippling in the wind, gold pomegranates on their spear butts flashing like stars. At their head rode Xerxes, god-king of Persia, who had just received word of a small Greek force blocking the pass at Thermopylae. The king allowed himself a thin smile. He had brought with him the most elite fighting force the world had ever seen, a unit so perfectly maintained that it never grew weaker, never numbered less than 10,000, and never retreated. The Greeks would learn why they were called immortal. Behind the pomp and golden grandeur lay a military machine of unprecedented sophistication. The Immortals maintained their perfect number through an ingenious replacement system. For every warrior who fell or became ill, a hand-picked successor stepped forward, already trained to the same exacting standards, already equipped with identical weapons and armor. This perpetual unit strength wasn't just for show, it was psychological warfare at its finest. Imagine being a tired defender, watching enemy casualties disappear as fresh warriors seamlessly filled the gaps, the attacking force never diminishing no matter how many you struck down. Their equipment set new standards for versatile warfare. While other armies specialized as either heavy or light infantry, the Immortals carried both a short spear for close combat and a powerful bow for ranged attacks. Their wicker shields, mocked by Greek writers as primitive, were actually a brilliant innovation, lightweight enough for long forced marches, yet strong enough to stop arrows and sword strikes. Under their magnificent uniforms, they wore scale armor of overlapping bronze plates, each piece stamped with the Lion of Persia. But it was their training that truly set them apart. While most Persian troops were conscripts, the Immortals were professionals who drilled constantly in every terrain, from desert to mountain. They practiced a unique form of unit coordination that allowed them to break into small, autonomous teams for special missions, then rapidly regroup into an unstoppable phalanx. Their archers developed techniques for indirect fire, using coordinated volleys to rain arrows on enemies hidden behind obstacles. They were masters of siegecraft, experts at river crossings, and skilled in the art of fighting at night, a rare capability in the ancient world. The Immortals achieved their greatest triumph during Darius Rhin's Scythian campaign. Facing mounted nomads who refused open battle, the Immortals split into 100-man teams, each operating independently to protect supply lines across thousands of miles of hostile steppes. When Scythian raiders struck, expecting to find vulnerable Persian conscripts, they instead met disciplined professionals who could match their mobility and exceed their combat skills. The campaign marked the first time a major empire had successfully projected power into the steppes, a feat that wouldn't be repeated for centuries. Yet their defining moment came not in victory but in near defeat. During Xerxes' invasion of Greece, after the fall of Thermopylae, the Immortals found themselves facing annihilation. A sudden storm had destroyed their supply fleet off Mount Athos. Cut off in hostile territory, short on food, and harassed by Greek raiders, they executed a fighting retreat across 300 miles of enemy territory. They arrived at friendly lines 40 days later, their numbers diminished but their unit cohesion intact. They had proven that elite training and iron discipline could overcome even the worst tactical situation. Centuries later, archaeologists excavating the palace at Susa discovered an inscription that perfectly captured the Immortals' ethos. Carved in 3 languages, it read, "We are the souls of the army, the shields of the empire, the spears that never break. We are the Immortals." In an age of mass armies and conscript warriors, they proved that a small, highly trained force could change the course of empires. Every modern nation that maintains elite guard units, from Britain's Household Division to America's Old Guard, follows in their footsteps. The legendary Varangian Guard, elite Viking warriors of Byzantium. When Emperor Basil II's messenger arrived in Kiev in 988 CE, he carried an unprecedented request. Byzantium, the most powerful empire in the Christian world, needed Viking warriors. Not just any Vikings, they wanted the most elite fighters the Norse world could offer. Within months, 6,000 axe-wielding giants from Sweden, Norway, and the Rus territories marched through Constantinople's Golden Gate, their polished mail glinting in the Mediterranean sun. The crowds fell silent at the sight. These were not mere barbarians, but the seed of what would become the most formidable royal guard unit in medieval history. The Varangians revolutionized the concept of elite guard forces by combining raw Viking combat prowess with Byzantine sophistication. They mastered the intricacies of imperial court politics while maintaining their Norse fighting traditions. Each guardsman carried the dreaded Dane axe, a weapon so heavy that, according to chronicles, it could split both shield and man in a single stroke. Yet these same warriors could recite complex Greek court protocols from memory and serve as expert witnesses in Constantinople's law courts. They were equally comfortable fighting pirates in the Aegean or preventing assassination attempts in palace corridors. Their loyalty came at a premium price. The Varangians were the highest-paid military unit in the known world. Each guardsman received a weight of gold equal to his own weight upon joining, plus regular payments in Byzantine numismata, the medieval equivalent of reserve currency. But the investment paid off spectacularly. During the attempted coup of 1042, 200 Varangians fought off a mob of tens of thousands trying to storm the imperial palace. According to eyewitnesses, the guardsmen formed a shield wall at the palace gates and reaped through the crowd like scythes through wheat, their axes creating such carnage that the riot collapsed. Princess Anna Komnen, history's first female military historian, described their most extraordinary tactic, the Pelakiferos drome, or axe-bearing charge. Unlike most heavy infantry who fought in tight formation, the Varangians would spread out in loose order, sprinting full speed toward enemy lines while whirling their massive axes in figure-8 patterns. The psychological impact was devastating. More than one enemy force broke before contact, simply watching this display of controlled berserker fury. Those who stood their ground faced warriors who had transformed their axes' momentum into unstoppable killing power. But perhaps their greatest test came during the Fourth Crusade in 1204. As Latin crusaders breached Constantinople's walls, the Varangians made their last stand protecting the Hagia Sophia. Fighting up the church's spiral staircases, they held off waves of knights trying to loot Christianity's greatest temple. When their axes grew blunt from hitting plate armor, they fought with sword and knife. When their weapons broke, they fought with bare hands. The Crusaders finally won through, but at such cost that they offered the surviving Varangians positions in their own guard, an offer met with cold refusal. The Varangian Guard proved that elite units could evolve beyond their original purpose, combining disparate military traditions to create something entirely new. Their unique combination of raw combat power and sophisticated political acumen set the template for modern special forces units that must operate in both military and diplomatic spheres. As one Byzantine chronicler wrote, "They are terrible in war, yet wise in council. Truly, they are more than simple warriors." Today's special forces teams, equally comfortable in embassies or combat zones, are their spiritual descendants. Masters of stealth, the Hashashin legacy. The Sultan's feast was in full swing when the guards noticed something odd about the elaborate centerpiece. Nestled among the delicacies was a dagger, its blade driven deep into the wooden table, pinning a note written in elegant Arabic script. The message was simple: "You were in our reach while you slept." It was signed with a single bloody fingerprint, the trademark of the Hashashin. The Sultan, one of the most heavily guarded men in the medieval world, had just received a warning he couldn't ignore. He would find his personal bodyguard chief dead in his bed the next morning, proving that the Hashashin could have killed anyone they chose at any time. High in the mountain fortress of Alamut Eagle's Nest in Persian, Hassani Saba had created something entirely new in military history, the world's first dedicated special operations training facility. The castle's famous gardens weren't meant for pleasure. They were elaborate training grounds where recruits learned to move silently across different terrains, to blend seamlessly into crowds, and to strike with surgical precision. Each operative mastered multiple languages, learned to mimic regional accents and mannerisms, and studied the art of disguise so thoroughly they could pose as merchants, scholars, or holy men for months without detection. Their innovation in psychological warfare was centuries ahead of its time. Instead of relying solely on force, they developed an elaborate system of influence operations. Their reputation for precision strikes was so fearsome that often a simple warning, like a dagger placed on a target's pillow during their sleep, was enough to change political decisions. They understood that the mere threat of their involvement could be more powerful than actual violence. Military historians now recognize this as one of the earliest examples of what modern special operations forces call strategic deterrence through specialized capability. The Hashashin's most remarkable operations combined meticulous planning with audacious execution. When they needed to eliminate a powerful crusader count, they didn't just assassinate him. They planted 3 sleeper agents who spent 2 years working as Christian monks, learning Latin hymns and church rituals, waiting for the perfect moment. The operation's success sent shockwaves through the Crusader states, demonstrating that no security measure was impenetrable to properly trained operatives. Even the legendary Saladin, after surviving 2 attempts on his life, chose to make peace with the Hashashin rather than face more of their infiltrators. Their training methods were revolutionary. While other military forces focused on weapons training, the Hashashin devoted equal time to languages, psychology, and tradecraft. They pioneered the use of deep cover operations, teaching agents to live false identities for years without breaking character. Each operative learned to craft mission-specific personas, complete with believable backstories and professional skills. They were the first to develop systematic counter-surveillance techniques, teaching operatives to spot and evade hostile observation through a series of exercises that would look familiar to modern intelligence agencies. Archaeological discoveries in the 1950s revealed the sophistication of their operational planning. Hidden rooms in Alamut contained fragments of detailed target dossiers, including architectural drawings of supposedly secure palaces, guard rotation schedules, and psychological profiles of potential targets. They developed their own encryption methods for secure communication, using a complex system of poetic metaphors that only initiated members could decode. Modern analysis suggests their organizational security was so effective that most of their successful operations remained unknown to history. The Hashashin's ultimate legacy wasn't in the targets they eliminated, but in proving that a small, highly trained force could influence events far beyond its size through precisely applied pressure. Their techniques for deep cover operations, psychological warfare, and targeted elimination of key personnel became the foundation for modern special operations doctrine. As one contemporary chronicler noted, they demonstrated that the careful application of force, precisely targeted, could achieve what armies could not. Every modern special operations unit that emphasizes precision over power, influence over force, and intelligence over numbers follows in their footsteps. The timeless legacy of elite warriors. On a moonless night in 2011, a team of US Navy SEALs infiltrated a compound in Abbottabad, moving with the same silent precision that the Hashashin had employed a millennium earlier. Halfway around the world, British SAS operators swept through a terrorist stronghold with the devastating efficiency of the Varangian Guard. In the South China Sea, Force Reconnaissance Marines gathered intelligence using methods the Speculatores would have recognized. The echoes of ancient elite units still reverberate through modern special operations, their hard-won lessons paid for in blood 2,000 years ago. What links these warriors across millennia isn't their weapons or tactics, but their fundamental understanding of warfare's eternal truths. The Sacred Band discovered that unshakable unit cohesion could overcome superior numbers, a principle that modern special operations teams demonstrate every time they take on larger conventional forces. The Immortals proved that strict selection standards and continuous training could create forces of unprecedented reliability, a lesson reflected in today's grueling Special Forces qualification courses. Each ancient unit contributed something vital to the modern special operations paradigm. The Speculatores' emphasis on intelligence gathering, the Varangians' ability to adapt foreign military traditions, the Hashashin's mastery of psychological warfare. Modern archaeological discoveries continue to reveal just how sophisticated these ancient units were. Ground-penetrating radar recently uncovered training facilities at Alamut that mirror modern special operations courses. Tactical manuals found in Byzantine archives show that the Varangians developed hand-to-hand combat techniques still taught today. Even their organizational structures, small elite units operating with considerable autonomy, anticipated the modern special operations model by thousands of years. But perhaps their most important legacy isn't tactical or technical, it's philosophical. These units proved that warfare isn't always won by the size of one's army or the sophistication of one's weapons. Sometimes victory goes to those who dare to imagine new ways of fighting, who understand that a small group of exceptional warriors, properly trained and employed, can change the course of history. This truth, first demonstrated on ancient battlefields, still shapes military thinking today. As modern special operations forces face evolving challenges from cyber warfare to space operations, they continue to build on foundations laid by their ancient predecessors. They understand, as the Immortals did, that elite units must constantly adapt while maintaining their core principles. They know, as the Hashashin proved, that precision and intelligence often matter more than raw power. Most importantly, they recognize that the pursuit of excellence in warfare is timeless, a thread that connects warriors across the centuries. Standing on the shoulders of these ancient giants, today's Special Operations Forces carry forward a tradition of excellence, innovation, and audacity that began millennia ago. As one modern Special Forces commander observed while studying these ancient units, the weapons change, the battlefield shift, but the fundamental principles of elite warfare remain constant. We are all links in an unbroken chain stretching back to antiquity. The story of ancient special forces is more than just military history. It's a testament to human ingenuity, courage, and the eternal quest for excellence in the profession of arms. Their legacy lives on in every special operations unit that dares to imagine new ways of fighting, every elite warrior who pushes the boundaries of what's possible, and every commander who understands that sometimes the smallest forces can have the largest impact. In their shadow, modern warriors continue to prove that the principles these ancient units discovered are truly timeless.